Hi, I'm Issie Barratt and I'm the Artistic Director of the National Youth Jazz Collective. Welcome to our hashtag National Youth Jazz Wednesday. Another thrilling opportunity to talk to some very dear friends about music, about what we're up to, about what we've shared in the past and what our plans are for the future. So today I'm really thrilled to welcome two women who I've worked with a lot recently. We're in an ensemble called Interchange together, but there's a long history between us all that goes right back to when both of them were on the summer school. So I'd like to welcome to the National Youth Jazz Wednesday, I'd like to welcome Rosie Turton. Hello, Rosie.
Hiya.
Trombonist extraordinaire. And then Jas Kayser, drummer. Hello, Jas. Jas.
Hello.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's the heat. I don't know how you're faring. I'm getting a little bit. Jas Kayser, Rosie Turton. Lovely to see you both. Just before we start our conversation, I'd just like to tell the people that have tuned in to watch that while we're on live, that we're welcoming everybody to type into the comments some questions and they'll get sent to me by text message because it's sometimes the Facebook freezes when I have a look online, but they'll be fed to me. So if there's anyone watching who during the course of the conversation would love to ask some questions, please do type them into the comments and then our good friend Nick Brown will send them through. Great. I'll say a few other bits and bobs about NYJC and our newsletter and our website and the stuff we're doing over the summer. I'll say that further into the conversation. So do stay tuned, everybody, because there's lots of things to listen out for. Great. So we haven't seen each other since January. The three of us were in Angel Studios recording January 2019, recording Interchange's album, Donna's Secrets, music by 10 women composers with 14 women ensemble players and lots of new material. And I just wondered, I haven't really had the chance to ask you about that project, and I wondered what you're, having now heard the album since we've mixed it, which we did with Olga Fitzroy, who was our producer. I'm wondering, go straight in there, what did you make of the album? So Rosie, first of all.
Yeah, I thought it was incredible. It was yeah, I just really love the kind of collaborative involvement of how lots of different musicians brought in compositions, and yeah, kind of just getting to play everybody's music was like amazing. Each one was like beautiful composition. Each was his own character. I think it sort of all together really pulled together to make a very special album.
Great. Well, how did it feel playing the music itself? Because it was the first time we played as a band, really, wasn't it? So did it feel, was it an easy sort of ensemble to play in, or were there any challenges? Because it was quite new and different to what we were doing to what we've normally done. So what were the sort of the challenges that you felt, and what were the sort of things that you really celebrate about it?
I guess, like, yeah, sort of being in a studio is always quite a challenging experience, I think, because you've got the time pressure of getting a lot of music recorded. But I mean, everyone is like super lovely to work with, and I think kind of like myself, I think probably most of us kind of had met each other at some point through different things, so it kind of just felt, it was just, yeah, really sort of great environment. Everyone was super supportive, just kind of like, you know, wanting to do it the best that we could. Yeah,
brilliant. A great trombone solo on my piece. I thought you played great. It's really good.
Thank you.
Really brought it alive. So we'll talk a bit more about the compositions, and then meanwhile in the booth we had percussion and drums being swapped between the two of you, yourself and so Jas, what was it like playing with Interchange? Because we hadn't seen each other for quite a long time, had we? So you'd been abroad, and I'm going to talk to both of you about your time abroad. So how did it feel to be suddenly fast-tracked into Angel Studio and then diving straight on in there with us?
Yeah, true. Yeah, it really was like it'd been a long time before that since we'd seen each other. So it's nice to just be reconnected with you and everybody else. You know, seeing some people I'd seen recently-ish, and then some people I hadn't seen for years. You know, and then just be able to connect with the music for like this few days that we recorded. It was so much fun, honestly. And being in the booth with Katie too. That was a lot of,
Katie Peterson.
Like, yeah, she's a lot of fun to play with. And I was doing a lot of the percussion things, and we had some fun instruments to experiment with, and just connecting, like you say, in that short time. But like Rosie was saying, the character of each piece, and everybody really brought it to life with their energy, you know. So yeah, it was a pretty exciting experience altogether.
Well done both of you, because you played brilliantly on the album, and I think we're going to put the link to the promo video for it so that people can hear you both play. We're going to put it in the Facebook post. I think Nick's going to add that. May have to wait till after this interview because it could sometimes mess around with the live stream. So, but I've sent it through so that if anyone's watching and you'd like to hear that, you can go to Interchange's YouTube channel and follow the link as well. So that for me was such an exciting thing to do with you both, because we've had such a lovely sort of history of things developing and evolving, and I've met you both in different sort of guises through different summer schools and sort of teaching at conservatoires and everything. So I wondered whether we might actually go back to when we each of us met. And I think the first of the two of you that I met was when we were at Sound and Music Summer School, I think. Rosie, is that right? Was that the very first time we met?
Yeah, that was, oh my gosh, a very long time ago.
And that was the summer school for young composers, wasn't it? And then we ran a jazz stream for 15 young composers, and I was very intrigued. I never got the chance really, because we were so involved during that week, to really sit down and talk to you about what it was that had attracted you to composition, rather than just going on an improvisation course. What was it about jazz composition that attracted you?
I really enjoy the kind of creation process and like putting things together. I just like, I think for that reason I've just always really loved composing. Just found it really fun. It's just kind of really fun.
What was it that you particularly think you discovered during that period of your sort of creative time when we were doing that summer school? What was it? So what were you listening to? So you must have been about 14 or 15, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the youngsters that we work with are always really intrigued to know because that's the kind of age group that, you know, the young musicians we're working with they're sort of in their teens. And they're often really keen to know about alumni and tutors. What is it that they were listening to at their age? So what sort of sound world were you hanging out in and listening and playing in?
I remember at that summer school listening to loads of Polar Bear. That I think their album called Polar Bear had come out. So I remember trying to get inspiration and sitting and listening to it and being like, wow, this is so complex. Like, how do they write this music? And also I think the piece I ended up writing kind of had like quite a sunny, joyful music sound to it. I think I sort of grew up listening to a lot of South African jazz, like sort of in particular like Abdul Ibrahim and Hugh Masekela. So I think that was definitely something that was sort of very much in my mind at the time when I was at Sound and Music.
That joyfulness an important part of your relationship with the music?
I guess so, although weirdly now most of the music I write is quite minor. It's sort of flipped to the other side, but I think definitely like rhythmically it's had a massive influence on the music that I create.
And then the next time you and I met was on the NYJC summer school, which was at one of the specialist schools. I can't remember which one it was now, but I wondered what it was that then inspired you to go from composition to improvisation.
I think for me they kind of both started around the same time. I guess I always sort of found, and still do find, like a link between the two. I guess with improvisation you're always looking for thinking about ideas and constructing a solo, or in whatever sort of scenario it is that you're improvising, there's always some kind of thought process of like pulling in inspiration from places, creating a sound world, like portraying an emotion, telling a story, and I feel composition is very, for me, like I feel it's very much the same thing. So I guess like sort of when I was young it kind of felt only natural that the two kind of fed into each other, and just sort of wanting to kind of going down the path of wanting to become like focus on jazz music. I guess, yeah, sort of brought me to National Youth Jazz Collective, which I think also probably found out about from you, Issie, when I met you at Sound of Music. So
yeah, the Sound of Music, yeah, probably. Yeah, because it was probably the first 4 years of NYJC. So yeah, that would have been how you would have heard more about it, rather than now people hearing about it sort of on the scene. We were so new that it kind of was word of mouth and anecdotally. And I'd like to come back later on and talk about that sort of relationship, because what you're implying is for you there's a bit of a spectrum, and that composition and improvisation are part of that spectrum, and that you also, the storytelling in both improvisation and composing is really important to you. So I'd like to come back to that and talk about it a bit further. First of all, I'd like to hear from Jas about your involvement. The first time we met each other again was at the National Youth Jazz Collective Summer School. And I think it was after that that you then went to study at the Purcell School as well, wasn't it? So maybe you could tell us a bit about the journey, or maybe you were even at the Purcell, I can't remember which of the orders, but that sort of relationship between realising that you want to pursue something and then actually going to a specialist music school, you know, to do that. I wondered if you might talk about both of those.
Yeah, it's true actually. So it's so hard to remember the order, like you say, but Jazz Collective was definitely my main introduction to really wanting to pursue jazz. And then the move to Purcell was as a result of Jazz Collective, because I was doing your Sunday workshops there every couple of months, I think. So I was commuting. My mum would drive me for the day from Dorset, you know, to come to London, and I loved it. Yeah, just like meeting people. Some people lived in London, some people had also travelled, and those days were so much fun for me. And I started to just get really drawn to like that community and London, and because Purcell was like almost, you know, very close to pretty much in London, you know, and they had the great jazz program there. Ended up going to Purcell to get more involved and be more available for the things that you're up to in London too, because it's quite, the commute is just so difficult. But after a while, it just made sense to make the move, you know. And so I think I did the National Jazz Collective Summer School the summer before Purcell.
That's
I think, and that feeling on the drums that and Jacob Collier was there too. And then I was asking them, you know, oh, you know, you're in Jazz Collective, and you go to Purcell too, what's it like, you know, getting a little, and it's just, that's the thing I love about the Jazz Collective. It's just meeting all these people from all over the place, and then reconnecting again in a couple of years. And even now, like, I'm meeting some people around London who I haven't seen since the summer school, you know, last time we saw each other, we were like 16 or something. Now we're like connecting again in the industry. It's quite a little thing going on.
So for both of you, was that, I've sensed that network at the time and beyond was an important part of your development and your sort of your journey, you know, and that you're meeting people to share with. And I was wondering, sometimes I think people wonder, why is it so important to meet young people of your own age to share that journey with? Surely just meeting people who are great musicians is enough, isn't it? Or what is the special uniqueness about actually sharing some of it with people that are your own age? Maybe Rosie, if you could sort of remember some of what it was like to first meet, you know, youngsters at NYJC and who were really into the music like yourself, and you got the opportunity to talk to them about it and share it.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, sort of following on from what Jas was saying, of how like you sort of, everyone meets each other again later on, and you also just kind of end up just like growing up together through playing music. Like a lot of people I was at the summer school with, I ended up being at Trinity at the same time, or they were at other music colleges in London. And like sort of like I went to sort of Tomorrow's Warriors as well, and kind of like the sort of mix, and we all just kind of like, it's just really nice. We kind of have known each other for like years and years, and kind of grown up playing music together, grown up being friends. I think, so that's what's really has been important for me for kind of and learning with musicians like my own age.
So following on from that, I'm wondering, Jas, whether that sort of ongoing relationship with people that you've met, whether your current music is actually benefiting from that.
Yeah, definitely. I think not necessarily my music personally, but well, actually that's a lie, because also I just think of Daisy George, I play with quite a lot now, and we've got some gigs coming with my own music, and we met through Jazz Collective, through the CLE, the Creative Leadership course, when it was all the girls, like a all female version, and we're really like in touch, and same with Alex Vidal and Ella Ford and things like that. Yeah, we're like still working together here and there, you know, in little tiny bits. It's definitely just having that kind of history and having met at a young age. I don't know, when you get older, you've got this nice connection that it's like you've got history together, you know, kind of.
You've got sort of a shorthand of working together, and you know what it feels like. It's like driving a car. You know what it feels like to get in that car and drive it. And without having to work out where the gear is or the clutch or everything. You guys already know because you've driven that car so many times already, kind of thing. Special kind of connection. One of the things when I talk to people about improvisation and composition, and whether it's music that they make themselves or it's repertoire they choose to play, I find that sometimes there's the sort of two camps. There's the sort of the seeing it almost as an abstract art form, where there's sort of structure and melody, and then using pre-existing language, you know, improvised language that's pre-learnt, sort of finding ways of integrating that into the soloing. And then there are others that feel it's much more autobiographical. It's a sort of storytelling and wanting to, you know, have convey some sort of almost a film or a short story. And I'm wondering, for the two of you, where do you feel that you position yourself in that side of things? Maybe if we talk with Rosie first of all.
Oh, that's a good question. I think where I am now with my music making, I'd say it's probably down the route of being autobiographical. I think definitely like a lot of the compositions that I write now arise from like where I am at that place when I'm writing it, sort of location wise in my head. Musically, like, you know, a lot of it also comes from the musicians that I'm playing with at that time, or influence sort of will come into what I'm writing. So I feel, for me, I feel it's definitely evolves as my life evolves as well. And does that affect, is there a sort of transitory relationship then with the music that you write? So if you look back at stuff that you wrote, say 3 years ago, is it still part of your repertoire, or do you feel that as you move on in life, do you leave things behind, take them with you? A bit of both. I feel the things that have stuck have changed. Like the music we won't play it exactly the same as when so like things like, I don't know, will change the groove or change the melody of it, sort of mix things up. And and what about for you, Jas? How do you feel, especially when you're choosing something or when you're playing within someone else's piece? You know, do you feel that there is that sense of storytelling and autobiography, or is it kind of much more nuts and bolts and getting language, pre-learnt language and technique, or maybe a balance of both? Well, I think I can also thinking mainly autobiographical in a way when you're playing, but a bit of both in a way, because also I think this lockdown especially kind of used the time at the beginning to kind of get into the nicks and grits of my playing and change some things that I didn't like and get more technical and you know, learn more language and just get deeper into some things that I hadn't focused on a lot, to have the tools to be able to, you know, but then it kind of became strange because when I first started playing again with people doing live streams and stuff, because I've been practicing so technically and so, like, you know, academically in a way, I didn't have that feeling that I felt when I was playing before, of just being in the moment and expressing like whatever came out, you know, as a result. It felt like I had these preconceived ideas of what I should play and how I should play, because I've learned this now and I want to be able to, you know, get that there. So it became less musical in a way. So I was like, okay, there is a psychology to like practicing and getting the language and the technique and down, and then removing that when you go into your performance or your jam or whatever it is, you know, and trying to make it autobiographical, you know. Autobiographical. Difficult word, that.
with both of you, you know, if you were to give advice, because one of the things we get asked about a lot, I think the way that you're describing music and the relationship you've got with it, it's really reminiscent of a lot of the stories that the individual youngsters that we work with talk about. So I think they would really be fascinated, and I think they would really trust your opinion on how much sort of practice you think should be done. What was your sort of typical, especially when you were at college as well, so what was your sort of typical personal practice regime? So maybe Rosie, we might start when you were at Trinity. What was it like for the personal practice side of things? And maybe it wasn't always consistent, and maybe it was, you know, whatever. It would be lovely to hear your story.
Yeah, well, this is gonna really expose a lot. What I should be saying is I practice 10 hours a day. No, I'm joking. I mean, probably, in reality, looking back, I mean, probably like 2 to 3 hours each day. I would aim to do, I guess as well, like sort of play the trombone. You're kind of limited on how much you can play each day before your face starts to hurt and things don't just cause more damage than good. But I mean, like, sort of one thing that I really sort of learned is, you know, it's not, also for me, it wasn't just the hours I spent with the instrument. You know, if for whatever one day I picked up the trombone and everything just felt really awful and it hurt, you know, I'd practiced too much, played too hard the day before, kind of just have to sort of be like, all right, I just won't push it today. But then using that time instead, like, you know, there's so much you can do away from your instrument as well. Like listening to music, thinking about it, like writing down ideas of things that you want to practice or things you want to do. Yeah.
Who were you into? Who were you sort of mimicking and drawing from the listening? You know, what was it that you were drawing from that listening? Was it just sort of lines, or was it orchestration, or was it feel, or during the time you were at college particularly, so sort of 18 to 21, what your own sort of personal choice of listening? Because obviously there'd be a wealth of stuff that was being shared at the college, but I think we still then follow our own sort of personal muse often, and what it is we love.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a lot of focus on transcription for the first couple of years at college, so I guess a lot of my focus was on that, like listening to other trombonists like JJ Johnson, Bob Brookmeyer, Curtis Fuller, and then kind of, yeah, as it sort of went on, I guess it became more about finding your kind of sound within everything. So I think I definitely got really into like Pharoah Sanders and John Coltrane and Alice Coltrane. That was my jam definitely for most of college. Yeah.
And Jas, you actually went to America to study. I remember talking to you about it as you were making the plans and the great excitement of going over there. So wondered, as well as talking about sort of your practice and the sort of things you were into and the things that you were realizing about your personal sort of development while you were over there, was just before that, what was it that inspired you to move to America?
So many different things, I guess, but mainly the people who were teaching there. I just like, I think the first thing I saw was that Terri-Lyne Carrington was a teacher there, and I was like, oh my god, that would be the dream, you know, to meet her and to have a lesson from her. Just one lesson, you know, I'd go over there just for one lesson from her. I was such a fan. I still am a huge fan of her playing. She's kind of like a role model to me, you know, someone I look up to just in the industry, like musically, personally. I like, you know, and then there's just other amazing drum teachers and like Ralph Peterson and so, who were just available, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, there's a school somewhere in the world that has all these teachers. Gotta go, you know. Yeah.
On a practical level, what's it like to go and study in America? Do you have to get visas, and sort of what's the fee situation? And
yeah, it's quite difficult thing. Definitely, I got a scholarship to go to the 5-week summer course there, and then when I was there was an opportunity for anybody to apply to get into the full course while you're on. So there's like an audition in the middle of the 5 weeks.
Wow.
And I did it, you know, just because I wanted to try and give it a go and kind of prepared. Spent like a couple of weeks there preparing and writing an arrangement with some of my harmony teachers and stuff. And then last week I ended up getting full scholarship near the announcement, and I just couldn't believe it.
Wow,
Wasn't even
congratulations.
expecting. Yeah. And then obviously call my mum, and I'm like, you know, you've got to make this work. Obviously we've still got flights and visas and things to figure out, but we did some fundraising and found a way around it and sort of made it work, you know. Yeah.
I should imagine that a lot of people were really keen to, you know, seeing your enthusiasm and hearing the good news story, that people were very keen to help you, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, isn't it? So
absolutely, yeah, that's so true. The support is unreal. I mean, people, to have that opportunity to go and study just somewhere else, you know, whether it's America, whether it's somewhere else in Europe or somewhere out of your hometown, it's just like invaluable, isn't it? Especially in something like music, to meet even more people and get exposed to more sounds and more music. Yeah, definitely had a lot of support, which I'm really appreciative of.
And that leads on really nicely to Rosie, because Rosie, also you spent a lot of time in India as well, and I wondered what it was that drew you to India, and how I think it's an ongoing relationship, isn't it? So I wondered if you could share a bit about it with us.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of have been going there for the last sort of 4 or 5 years. I sort of went there for the first time, one, because I just wanted to go and visit it, and two, I was really, at the time, sort of really into a lot of Indian classical music, and kind of thought I would just love to, I mean, I had some education of it within the UK, some with you, Issie, with Samyo.
That's right, yeah. Oh, great. Oh, it's great to know that led on to
yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Millip Fest, for those that are watching, Millip Fest is an organisation that it manages a lot of Indian artists, and within their remit they've also got 2 youth groups as well, and NYJC went to work with Samyo. That's great. I hadn't realised it was actually that connection, so I'll pass that on, because I know they'd love to hear that, and we're still working with them a lot. So yeah, from that sort of working together and thinking, I'd like to do some of this, where did the journey then lead you?
So I kind of sort of decided, it'd be really sort of great to kind of actually just go and immerse myself in the sort of country, and just be able to, like, you know, see lots of live music over there, and sort of hopefully get some sort of lessons, which when I arrived I realised it's actually a lot harder to penetrate than it is what I'm used to things work in the UK, of you kind of go and you can call, like, you know, find some, be like, oh, can you give me a lesson? Sort of in India it doesn't, with especially in classical music, it doesn't quite work so much like that, which I found out. But I ended up meeting a group of musicians at one place that I was staying, who were from all over the country, and they kind of just like took me under their wing, and we kind of swapped ideas on like music. So they sort of taught me some ragas and how they improvise on them, how they improvise as a group, and then I also, like, you know, taught them some like jazz tunes. Like we did like Afro Blue, which was cool.
Oh, great. I bet that worked really nicely.
Yeah, it was fun. We kind of just like built up our own kind of like adaptation of it. But yeah, since sort of being that first time, I've somehow met loads of sort of musicians that are more in the sort of jazz and popular music scene in India. So I kind of go back every year to like go hang out with them and like play music. Like there's like a wicked scene over there, like loads of jazz coming up, like loads of hip hop, like yeah.
What was the instrumentation? What was the lineup of the first group when you first met them and they took you under their wing? What sort of instruments were you playing alongside?
So there was a tabla, there was a bansuri player, which is the like flute. There was a harmonium player who also sang, and a singer who played guitar as well. And yeah, we did a lot. The 2 singers kind of came from Sufi music background, so we played like a lot of those songs, which were like awesome. And yeah, just like playing those, we did some like gigs around in the local area and just playing them and seeing like how like everyone, they're just like you know, everyone there just like knows the songs, and everyone's just going like wild, like when we play one, like it was so like, yeah, just like so new to me. It was just like, yeah, a great thing to experience.
Was there the opportunity to sort of adopt a guru? Were you able to be part of that guru, or were you actually sort of basically the group itself became your guru?
Yeah, I guess like the group became like that, you know, we built that relationship where we got to know each other, we sort of hung out, drank tea together, like became friends, and through that learned music from each other. Yeah,
a spiritual journey as well as practical, making music together. Those sort of environments, we grow as people as well, don't we? And that feeds back into the music. Yeah. Back over in America, when you were over there, I'm sure that you built up, we've been talking about sort of groups of people that we've gone on to work with and, you know, develop long-term relationships. Some of us call them our family, some of them call us our tribe. I'm wondering, when you were in America, did you find that you were gradually moving towards a group of musicians that you found yourself just naturally wanting to play with and doing projects?
Yeah, definitely. I do think in what's that?
Yeah, might you sort of share a bit about these, who they were and sort of the instrumentation? Why was it that you wanted to play with them?
Yes, I think it was such a big college as well, like Berklee. There must be like 4,000, maybe over 4,000 students there as well. It's just such a big community, and there's this, you know, from pop to more R&B, gospel to jazz to rock, you know, heavy metal, and then it's like the African music side of things, Indian music. There's just so many communities that you can get involved in. And the great thing is you can dip and dabble in a little bit of everything. You can do like one semester of an ensemble here, or, you know, stuff like that. I'd say towards the end, I started developing more of a family in different areas. Like I had a group called Jack Martini, which was like a indie pop-ish kind of group. And we got playing a lot. We played, most of the time we played in New York. I was playing in like a pop band, you know, in like Rockwood Music Hall and stuff. And it's just pop, but more like the alternative vibe, and that was incredible, and we became such a close family of people. And some of them were from the main singer was from Italy, and another bass player was from Italy, and another singer, she was from Montreal. So it's just like a random mix of people, and then sort of went through that, and also got into, obviously was constantly doing the jazz thing, but was like doing contemporary kind of pop stuff on the side. And when I got into the master's program with Danilo Perez, that became, I kind of focused even more on jazz, like started at jazz, went to pop, and then came back to jazz again. Always back to jazz.
Think about that. That's great. So both disciplines are so great.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, when you talk about the music and the way you talk about it, it reminds me of the way that Rosie was talking earlier on as well about, you know, the music being drawn towards the joyousness of the music. And do you feel that joyousness is a really important part of your relationship with the music, that for it to be allowed to be joyous?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, because obviously, you know, you spend a lot of time taking music really, really seriously. I mean, you know, it's a serious art and all of that. And a lot of time on your own, just practicing and mastering your instrument or whatever. But yeah, just to be able to have a group of people who are your friends and your family, and you're having a good time, and you can bring a joy to music and the opportunity to play to other people, other musicians, other non-musicians, and just have it be fun, you know, after hours of like stress or whatever it is, you know, all that pressure you put on yourself to make it good and stuff. It's definitely important to find the joy in it.
That's the timing of when, again, what you've just said then's prompted a question that a lot of the youngsters have, which is, you know, from hearing us talk about the music, obviously everyone's hearing about the upside of it all and all the sort of things that we really cherish and enjoy about it all. I'm wondering, because some of the youngsters we work with are occasionally quite shy, you know, and they're really creative, but they feel inhibited and that they can't go and ask other musicians to play with them. They're a little bit fearful of rejection. And it's something we've talked about in a few other interviews as well. And I just wondered, because particularly with you both being, you know, quite closer to their age than a lot of the people we've talked about, you know, I think they would really trust your opinion on this, because, you know, it's very close. The journey itself is quite close to you both still. So how do you manage the situation when you want to go and ask somebody to work with you? How do you feel about it, and how do you overcome it, or is it just something that you naturally do? Maybe Rosie.
Oh yeah, that's I think, yeah, it's definitely, if it's someone that I don't know, it's definitely quite intimidating to kind of ask someone. I mean, I think, yeah, I've been quite lucky of sort of having grown up musically in like a lot of supportive environments, like sort of regularly attending Tomorrow's Warriors sessions where it was like very inclusive and kind of just getting to know lots of people from that. But I mean, I say, like, you know, it's there's nothing wrong with some. All they can do is say no. And I think, you know, as the older I've gotten, you know, I used to be like super shy, and I kind of, as I got older, I kind of realized that you just gotta do it. And I've kind of like ended up finding myself in some like awesome situations just from doing that. Like, I sort of went to New York a couple of years back for the first time, and saw William Parker doing a gig with Hamid Drake on drums, and I was like, oh man, I really want a lesson with William Parker. And I was like, I'm only in New York once, and I was like, oh no, I can't do this. And I was just like, with William Parker, and I just went up to him and I was like, hey, I like love your music, can we have a lesson? And he was like so nice and was just like, yeah, like for sure, like let's meet up. So I mean, yeah, it can be really intimidating, but I'd say, like, definitely, you know, just, yeah, what's the worst that can happen? That's sort of what you got.
Like that. That's a definite t-shirt motto as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about you, Jas? Do you feel the same about going to ask people for things, and either playing or lessons, and how do you overcome it?
Absolutely, I agree with you, Rosie. I agree. I mean, you've got to go for it, you know, and also it's easier said than done, definitely. And I think I still am a little shy sometimes, you know, and definitely used to be a lot more shy. I remember going to a jazz collective and being like, you know, just nervous and intimidated and shy and playing and stuff like that, and definitely coming out of my shell. I mean, going to the States too just brought me out of my shell so much, because also, like, typically I feel like Americans are just very outspoken and very extroverted in a way, and it kind of forced me to go along with that. I even had an experience of a friend of mine who's an incredible guitar player from Israel, and he probably doesn't remember this himself, but it was really valuable to my experience, because he said, we were chatting after a gig, like in Wally's Jazz Cafe, and we're having a good old time, and so, oh, why do you always agree with me or something? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And I'm having a conversation, and she said, you always just kind of agree. And I feel like you don't inside agree, but you're just saying it out loud, you know, to be comfortable. From that moment, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to start not agreeing, if, you know, or whatever. Not that it has to be like an argument or anything, but just yeah, if you don't know something, not being afraid to ask. And I think a lot of times, sometimes you stay quiet because you're, oh, maybe I should know that. And, you know, but I've definitely learned along that it's so much more beneficial for you and everyone around you just to say, you know, to ask questions and say when you don't know something, because you're going to learn more and you're going to be exposed to more and things like that. So I really force myself to do that these days. It's just, you know, you can't know everything, surely not. I mean, some people do. I don't know, but yeah.
I think also from our perspective, because obviously having, you know, done a lot of bringing bands together and inviting people to play, and also running courses, you know, it's easier for me to comment on maybe than for each of you to comment about yourself, in that you're both very open and you're both very keen, and there aren't you don't build walls, and so nobody's having to take any walls down, you know, because some people can be very difficult to work with, either very fixed in the way they play or very fixed in the way they hang socially. So, you know, you're both very joyous people to be around as well, you know, and to make music with. We know that you'll be really receptive and open and sharing, and that is a very nature of really what our music is all about, isn't it? It's a collective. It's one of the reasons we call it the National Youth Jazz Collective, because the music itself is in the main very collective. We're all there sharing together. I'm wondering about, you know, you said that somebody was saying you always agree, and I'm wondering if we do that as musicians as well when we're playing, and if you've ever found yourself playing and thinking, oh, this really doesn't feel right, do I go along with it, or do I actually influence it to change? Rosie?
Oh, that's quite a good question. I guess, I suppose, like, I feel, yeah, it's come from both sides. Like, I feel but sometimes there's been, like, especially with, like, say drummers or something, or the rhythm section, and I mean this in like a good way, of that kind of push and pull of, like, when you're like kind of, instead of just going along with each other, and you kind of are building the tension because someone throws something in and the other person's is like, okay, then like throw something else back. Yeah. That's
You
what
you feel comfortable doing that now because you're good at it. I remember it on the album, you know, it was great with the strength of some of the ideas that you were laying down. It was just like, yeah, brilliant. The music was really benefiting from your input massively, and you feel relaxed doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that kind of relationship has definitely grown, like built with musicians that I play with quite a lot, that we know kind of like each other's playing, and we can predict.
Yeah,
is like, in some ways there's just that kind of, you build up that kind of telepathic thing where you kind of just somehow can feel where they're going to go with it. But yeah,
I think that's true of everyone from all generations, isn't it? And all groups of people that we playing together, we all, you know, benefit from that familiarity, and once that starts to grow, then it's very difficult to replace it, isn't it? No newcomer can often just come in and assume that familiarity, but sometimes that newcomer can inject something new, which is also really exciting, to be working with somebody that you can't second guess them and you're not familiar with, you know. Like kindred spirits. What was it like working with Terri-Lyne?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, incredible, invaluable. Like I never forget the with her, and I never forget the lessons. She's a really chill teacher. I mean, she's just a really chill person too, and she's got, I mean, really good heart, and I like her values, like the way, not her values, but the way she carries her values as a female musician, female drummer. I think it's incredible. The things done, the projects she's led, and things like that. There's a couple of things I remember that she's taught me. One of them was the thing we talking about, like the force and the kind of like, not aggressiveness, but like assertiveness when you're playing. Rosie, you were talking about too. It's like she was playing, and she, oh no, you've got to play from your core. You know, I feel like, don't play louder, but you're playing kind of like, you know, light and weak in a way. You know, it sounds weak. So she just kind of like, as I was playing, she pushed her hand on like the top of my back with a bit of force and just like pushed me like that much, and she like play like that all the time. So now I feel like when I play, I'm always like leaning forward just a little bit, just to get a bit more like, you know, into the attack. You know, it's not the volume, but it's just like the feeling and the force and the gravity, you know, you bring into the drums. So that's something I learned from her, and gone so much into that, I've forgotten the other thing that she taught me. But yeah,
it's great to have her presence, the sense that her hand is constantly on your back. She's kind of watching your back as well as helping you with that core playing. Is there anybody else who's done a similar thing for changing your sound? And on the trombone, Rosie, can you remember anybody and how they might have gone about? Because we often get instrumentalists watching who've got sort of instrument specific questions. So I know the drummers will be like, oh yeah, that's great. And there's some stuff that Dave Holland's done online talking about how, you know, for us on our YouTube channel, sort of talking about the balance of the bass and how to really anchor yourself while you're playing. And I'm wondering if there's a similar sort of influence from working with a trombonist.
Yeah, like I think definitely at college, like having lessons there, like yeah, Mark Bassey was really helpful. Just, he's such a calming, sort of lovely, open sort of person to have a lesson with. And yeah, he was, I think just his like encouragement of kind of just sort of not being like, you know, if I'd sort of play something and felt like I'd played it out of tune or messed up a note, he'd kind of be like, no, like don't worry, you know, just like, so I think it taught me the kind of like patience, and kind of just remembering to sort of like think about it, and yeah, sort of not kind of get too sort of worked up about playing it perfectly every time.
That is a big help, isn't it? To find that patience actually is a massive help in all our playing. because it really frees us up. It can, that sort of, that impatience can sometimes benefit the sort of feel, but it's quite a short-lived thing, isn't it? It can actually hinder the music if it's constantly impatient. Nice to evoke an impatient feel while you're playing, but for that to be constantly present,
yeah,
exhausting.
yeah.
Just remind everybody that's watching, if you've got any questions, do please put them in the comments. And as I say, our dear friend and colleague Nick will forward them through the comments. He'll text them through so we can include them. So we've got two types of questions that I'd like to talk about now. First of all, one is to do with where you feel you now are, and I haven't really had a chance to talk to either of you since the album about, so ratio wise, how much of your activity now is your own music, how much of it is playing in other people's bands, and how much of it is that is conscious decision making, or do you like to leave things open, and you know, how much of it are you controlling your current sort of playing and the journey that you're on? So maybe Rosie, first of all.
I feel like I've got, it sort of changes depending on, I guess, what's happening, but I feel in general I have a sort of a balance, and that's just also because I just really sort of love doing loads of different stuff. Like I kind of say yes to most things that sort of come my way, and yeah, I just sort of really enjoy playing music with whoever. So yeah, it's been, yeah, nice sort of balance. But I guess something I, you know, is just also for myself anyways, also having to remind myself to leave enough time for my own music as well, because it's very easy to fill the diary up with all these fun things and then kind of get to it and it's like, oh wait, yeah, I don't have any time left for my own project. So I guess, yeah, striking a good balance is important.
So if you are really fully booked, your muse starts to knock on the door slightly and say, don't forget about me. And what is it that you're working on? What sort of, when you say your own music and your own projects, what sort of things are occupying you at the moment?
Well, I guess recently, because of having lots of free time, which has been great, a blessing in disguise. Yeah, just been, I've got lots of music which has been recorded and is sitting on a hard drive, so I'm just kind of like spending time going through that and finishing off all the production and putting bits together. And yeah.
What software do you use?
I use Ableton. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That'll be good. Maybe one day we'll have a little chat about it, because Ableton of all of them is the thing that I'm least familiar with, so it'd be interesting to talk to you about it. Do you see yourself as two different people when you're sort of doing the more the digital type of stuff, or is it just basically you're recording yourself playing, or do you actually use digital sound in your work?
Yeah, I use a lot of digital sound, and yeah, like lots of plugins like synthesizers, and also just kind of like editing the parts, like kind of changing them, like looping stuff or chopping it all up. I mean, it's something, yeah, it's something that I'm still like learning as I go along. It's kind of, I guess, like learning a new instrument. There's just so much kind of to it, but yeah, it's been really fun. I've kind of really been getting into it more.
Great.
Years.
Do you play along to it and then have it half live, half, or do you see it very much as I want to capture this, you know, this whole sound, and then that's it? It's sort of it's a defined recording.
Oh, I think like, yeah, like at the moment it's kind of the live stuff. It's the same compositions, but the live stuff is like quite different. It's more in the moment of who's playing and you know, whatever happens. But yeah, I guess the other stuff is kind of in the kind of recordings. I suppose the production thing is like the focus of it being like, this is what it sounds like on this track and stuff. Yeah,
like a definitive version for the track, but then to set it free a bit more when you're playing it live.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. What about Jas? What about yourself? What's your sort of ratio of your own projects and other people's projects, and is it managed at all? Is it conscious, or is it just the way it ebbs and flows?
Yes, it's kind of same actually, a bit 50-50 really. Definitely more, even now I'm kind of leaning towards doing my own thing slightly more than I've ever done before, for sure. But always, it's definitely a conscious decision, because I love playing with other people and just other groups. I'm kind of the same, like saying yes to most things, you know, just super up for new music and new groups and whatever all the time, but I'm spending a lot of time on my own stuff recently, and for plans in the future, I'm kind of trying to get that together. And I just released a new EP, but that's in preparation for next year to get a full album together.
Oh, great. What's the project that you're aiming to do the full album with? Is it a live band or is it a studio project?
More studio, I think, because the EP was live, like all recorded together live in the studio. With this one, I want to connect the people I met in Panama and people in Boston, and
oh wow,
get everybody on it possible, you know, if possible. Somehow we'll see how it works, but yeah, I really want to do like a world. What
took you to Panama? Where was that from? America then to Panama?
Yeah, straight from Boston to Panama for 1 year, and then over to London. Yeah, Panama is incredible experience. Yeah.
In what way? It was incredible.
Mainly the family side of it, you know, like the connections of the musicians there, and just become like, they're so welcoming in a way. Like I've been there for like 3 months, and suddenly like, hey, you're one of us, you're Panamanian now. Just make you feel so like included and stuff, and the music is unbelievable. There's a small jazz scene, you know, and it's developing now, and that was sort of what I was doing there, was teaching jazz. But the traditional Panamanian music is influenced from like African rhythm, there's influence from the Caribbean, and then obviously a lot of Latin music like salsa and merengue and all of this. So I was just, as any musician, but as a percussionist especially, I was just getting absorbed into like learning different balis and congas and all these different like traditional Panamanian drums, and it completely like evolved my playing in a way. And I'm still trying to like get that more into my playing, but being exposed to those kind of rhythms along with jazz, you know, just opened my mind to realize that it's not just ding 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 ding, you know, there's so much more to it than that.
What do you say when somebody asks, same question for both of you here, if you meet somebody for the first time and they ask you, what do you do? What's your answer, Rosie?
I think I'd say I play the trombone now. Yeah. I feel when people be like, oh, I'd be like, I'm a musician, they're like, oh, you're a musician, like, what do you do? And I'm like, jazz, and they're like, oh, okay. So I'm like, you know what, I play the trombone, because yeah, I mean, jazz is such a broad thing now as well, and I guess yeah.
Jazz, what do you call yourself? Good answer.
Same, actually. I think sometimes I say I'm a musician, but yeah, I just be like, oh, I play the drums. So that's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
I think we've become much more genre fluid as well. I think we ebb and flow across the genres and cross-pollinate. It's difficult. It's very difficult to separate them all out and say, oh, now I'm being a jazz musician, now I'm being an Indian musician, now I'm being a, you know, South African, South American musician or whatever.
Yeah.
Chamber group, rock group. Yeah. I like the ebb and flow, you know, having been around for quite a while, I enjoy that ebb and flow. It's something that feels natural. And I'm wondering, the other thing is that we have talked on various occasions during your journey and also supporting other people's journeys about being a woman in the jazz world. And I know that we've had some, you know, we've played in an all-female interchange ensemble, which was basically to champion the musicians. It wasn't focusing on being women, but it was bringing the women together who I myself don't get a chance to work with very much, because I get commissioned to write a lot of big band music, and I was finding that I was working a lot with all male groups, and after 20 years also found that a lot of the work I was doing in the conservatoires and NYJC for a while as well, you know, there's a lot of male colleagues and a lot of male participants. So for me, it was quite selfish putting the band together. I wanted that opportunity to work with more women, and I could see it wasn't going to happen if I left it to fate, you know. So that's what I did. I got all the women that I've wanted to work with for ages, and I could see that they would never be invited to come into the world that I was working in. I thought, well, I'll do it for myself, and I'm really glad I did. I think the compositions that we got for the band were great. They were very different. They were very from a female perspective, you know, things like talking about Calais and what was happening during the Calais in the jungle, and the sort of the fearfulness of the young children, which Nicky Iles's piece was Nagomi, and then also with Shirley Smart having lived 10 years in Israel, and sort of her having seen the destruction of things, and yet the defiance of the musicians that were around. And then me sort of hearing that, the cowherd calling, that is a song that's only the women learnt in Sweden, and so only for 400 years only the women had been calling the herds in with this. So it was really lovely to now, you know, be in this sound world, and also the storytelling that I felt was very influenced by our being women. But stepping outside of that, where it's, and you yourself actually, Rosie, you've worked in an all-female band for a while. Do you want to, maybe before we go into the just what's it like being a woman musician, what was it like working in that all-female band? What was the premise for it? What was the point, if there was any premise or point?
So the band is called Nerija, which so it's now no longer an all-female group. But when it was first started, it came out of the Tomorrow's Warriors female collective, which they put together to kind of encourage young women, just to give them a space where they felt more comfortable perhaps, or there was less kind of maybe where they, you know, there was less kind of maybe intimidation from people just having lots of confidence and being, you know, really like open to just jumping in. So through that, kind of Nerija got formed as kind of like a group. But I mean, like I think for us, I guess at the beginning it was quite important to keep it female, like when we have depths and stuff. But I think after a while we kind of felt, you know, we wanted to kind of just like, we were what we were because we loved playing music together and writing music together, and it wasn't because we were all women. So we kind of decided that was no longer an important thing to kind of be like, we need to keep it this way. So I mean, now, like, you know, we've got Rio who's on bass, and you know, we're kind of, when we have depth, it's, you know, whoever kind of gender is no longer important. But I mean, I guess, we kind of, I think the way we sort of see it now is sort of making it like normalizing it. So by not sort of, for us, you know, it shouldn't have to be a thing, because it's not a thing when you get an all male band. They're not listed as the all male blah blah. So I think we're kind of just like, but I mean, it's wicked right now. I mean, there's so many, I feel like lots of women that are taking, you know, taking it up there, which is like awesome. And
the fact that, you know, they're taking it up there because, like you say, we've all got the same ambitions, and we've all got the same love of the music. I don't think the gender doesn't impact. It's not because of our gender that we love music, or that we're ambitious to be our best possible selves and to work with people to share that journey on and to create music that really moves us. That's neither gender has got a hierarchy on, you know, is leading on that one. I just think sometimes maybe the environment that we've been working in sometimes can take on a little bit, has in the past taken on a slight locker room macho mentality in some areas of the music industry. So it's really nice to see that that's relaxing, and, you know, people can just turn up and be themselves, and it's not made to feel so conspicuous.
Mm-hmm.
What about yourself, Jas? The sort of relationship, because we did the creative leadership ensemble, and then, you know, I don't know whether that helped in any way or not, if that was just great musicians playing great music, or if there was, you know, that opportunity to work with other women. Same thing that Rosie's talking about. So it was relevant at one point and then became less necessary to be all female. I don't know what your feeling is about, say, CLE and what you've gone on to do afterwards.
I have similar feeling in a way. Like had a kind of weird relationship with the whole female musician thing as well, because when I was younger, I didn't think twice about it, and I feel like lucky enough that I wasn't surrounded by people who kind of made me feel uncomfortable for being a female, especially playing like drums, which is like a masculine instrument or something, you know. But I never felt that threat, or I mean, maybe if someone had said it, I just didn't understand it or ignored it or something. So I grew up definitely not feeling uncomfortable whatsoever for being a girl on the drums, you know. I never felt weird about being in a group full of guys. I don't think I even thought about the fact that I was the only girl, like, up until a point, you know. And then obviously getting a bit older, maybe 13, 14, around the time of CLE, it wasn't necessarily, I wasn't kind of consciously thinking about those things in a way. only because maybe I hadn't personally experienced something, or I had been ignorant to something that I had experienced that I wasn't aware of or something. So that was just my personal feelings. And then CLE was amazing in its own right, just because hanging with great friends. I mean, most of the girls on that course too, we just got on so well, and we had a good old hang, like being able to like hang for the weekend, a couple of nights, and playing all day every day, and form like this bond was so nice. And not even, I don't even know if any of them were thinking about it too, but feel like, oh, we're a group of girls finally, we're comfortable. It was just like, oh, we're a group of really great friends, this is amazing, you know. It's only now, like over the past few years, I've definitely gone more, I've put in a lot more thought into the whole female musicians, just sexism in general, and sexism in the music industry. And I kind of sometimes felt uncomfortable having like all female groups or something like that. It just makes me feel secluded by doing that, rather, you know, like you're saying, it's important to have male and female because then you're being included. But I feel that there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still a lot of things under the surface or higher up in political situations that still aren't equal. Therefore, that's the reason why there's you know, we still have to put like a female group together, or we still have to recognize females, you know, represent them more on social media and stuff. And as long as we're doing it in a genuine way, I think it is important to do. And then until we become equal, it's sort of like the whole, you know, Black Lives Matter thing. So you can't say all lives matter until Black Lives Matter. You can't say everyone's equal until females really are equal to male, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you just hit on something which is really important for everyone to remember as they're sort of blossoming into the profession, is that a lot, you know, sometimes the decision making isn't by the musicians, and so there are weird prejudices, like people thinking that the music industry might be a little bit more, certainly in the past there was like a caricature of what a jazz musician would be, and it was ostensibly male if you asked somebody, whereas now I think people are much more, there's much more presence of female musicians, and so people are feeling much more relaxed about it, and it's become a much more natural thing. Yeah, so I've seen a big change, and it's been great to see both of you blossom and grow over the years, for sure. That the work that you've both done as well, people can see that on the NYJC YouTube channel. We've got some of the performances that we've done in the past, and also on the website NYJC nationalyouthjazz.co.uk, the website. We when we did the creative leadership ensemble, we actually did some research, practical research on that, and there's a really nice report that we wrote with pictures and a bit of a narrative and some video footage, so people can see some of the work that the band did. And Interchange, people can see that on YouTube on the Interchange channel, so they can see us play together. If you would like to donate as well, anyone that's watching, because as you can hear from the conversation, we're very, very passionate about the work we do. And I know from the experience that we've had of all the people we've worked with, that we're all aware of the fact that some of the young people we work with come from backgrounds where they really benefit from the bursary scheme, because you want to make it available to people from all backgrounds. So if you'd like to support our work, especially during this period of time, if you'd like to donate, the link is definitely here on the Facebook page. And if you would like to go to our nationalyouthjazz.co.uk website, there's also a donate page there as well, so that's very easy. And also sign up for the newsletter, because I haven't told Rosie or Jas this yet, but we've got a week in August where we thought it would be nice to do something online instead of the summer school. So we're going to invite a few people to come and talk and do some things online. So we're going to be sending out a newsletter next week, so it will invite people to come and join us. Some of the stuff will be live streamed, and I'd like to have a chat with the two of you between now and then to sort out inviting you and to come and work with some of the young musicians online, so that we keep that activity going for everybody while we're all in lockdown. But without further ado, because I really appreciate you both giving this hour to talk to us, and I know that people watching will be really glad of you having been here as well. So can I say to both of you, both as friends and fellow musicians, it's really lovely to see you both. I've really enjoyed talking. Thank you very much, Jas Kayser.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Rosie Turton.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me as well.
So thanks a lot to Nick Brown as well for getting us online and managing everything. We want to wish you all a really lovely evening. Do come back and watch us again next week, when we'll actually be working with our ambassadors. So we've got a series of young musicians who are working with us to become our next generation of creative music leaders. So it'd be really lovely to share with you all what we're doing, and there'll be some sort of opportunity for sort of thinking about how to play the music, starting from all different levels, and how to share the music from an educator's perspective. So do all tune in, please, and see you all next week. Thanks very much.